Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're unpacking a stack of sources from military strategy papers and UN documents, all the way to a spirited debate on a certain internet forum.
And it's all centered on one big question. What is the ultimate weapon?
Exactly, and it's a profound question because the answer really shifts depending on the scale you're looking at.
Right. Is it a super fast missile that gives you, literally seconds to react? Is it a hyper-intelligent machine that kind of shifts moral accountability?
Or is it something way more basic, something deeply human, like a well-trained punch?
That's the mission. And you highlighted the source diversity here. We're going from really high-stakes geopolitical analysis, the ICRC and UN reports.
All the way down to highly personal, practical advice from online self-defense communities.
And even philosophical critiques from fictional narratives. What connects all of it is this relentless human search for superior capability.
And, just as importantly, the incredible challenge that comes with trying to regulate or control that capability once you've achieved it.
We're looking at capability across technological, existential, and personal dimensions.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should start with the immediate, cutting-edge threat dominating defense budgets and strategy planning today.
B.
Sheer, unadulterated speed. We're talking about hypersonic weapons.
Hypersonic weapons are generally defined as objects traveling at Mach 5 or greater.
So 5 times the speed of sound.
At least 5 times. And crucially, they operate within the atmosphere, just sort of outside the reach of most conventional air defense systems.
And here's where the analysis gets really critical for understanding the threat. They're just exponentially more dangerous than the standard ballistic missiles we've dealt with for decades.
And that comes down to 2 specific factors.
Right. First, that extreme speed, it drastically reduces your reaction time. You have mere minutes, not hours, to respond.
And the second factor is the real game changer. Unlike ballistic missiles, which follow a predictable parabolic trajectory like, throwing a baseball, hypersonics can maneuver mid-flight. They can change direction, altitude, speed.
Which makes their path totally unpredictable.
And essentially impossible to target with our current missile defense technology.
Impossible. That sounds terrifying. Is there any hard data on how successful our current defenses are?
The difficulty is very, very real. Recent, though limited, studies suggest that out of, say, 10 hypothetical hypersonic missile attacks, the average military using current tech could successfully intercept perhaps one, or possibly none. The sheer maneuverability combined with the speed makes it a needle in a rapidly moving, superheated haystack.
Let's break down the technical differences the sources highlight. What are the 2 main types we need to be aware of?
Okay, so the first type are hypersonic glide vehicles, or HGVs.
HGVs, got it.
Think of these like a super sophisticated paper airplane. They are launched by a traditional booster rocket to a very high altitude.
And once they're up there?
Once they detach, they just glide toward the target using aerodynamic lift and controls for massive range and that key maneuverability.
China's DFZF is a well-known example of that, right?
Exactly, that's the one. So they use a traditional rocket to get up high, and then physics takes over for the rest of the journey.
Okay, so what's the second type?
The second type are hypersonic cruise missiles, or HCMs. These are powered throughout their entire flight, typically using a scramjet engine.
A scramjet?
Yeah. This engine configuration allows them to maintain that high speed and altitude by continuously compressing and combusting air. It acts like a perpetual high-speed projectile.
And the Russian Zircon missile is the leading example there.
It is.
It sounds like pure sci-fi, but these are operational or very near operational. If they're so revolutionary, what are the trade-offs? Traveling at Mach 5 through the atmosphere can't be easy or cheap.
It's neither. Development is astronomically expensive. And flying that fast through dense atmosphere creates huge drag, high energy consumption.
Especially when it maneuvers.
Especially then. It limits range and speed over the long haul. But there's this other, lesser-known problem. The plasma effect.
The plasma effect?
Yes. The friction generated at Mach 5+ is so intense that it creates a superheated sheath of ionized gas plasma around the missile's body.
And that causes what?
Well, this plasma severely limits external radio communications.
Wait, hold on. So if the plasma effect limits communication, does that mean the operator on the ground loses agency over the missile after launch?
For a large part of its flight, yes.
So it's effectively flying blind, or at least deaf to new commands.
The ability to course-correct or abort the mission via external radio is compromised. The systems have to be highly autonomous internally, pre-programmed, or rely on intermittent fixes.
Wow. That's a massive technical challenge.
It is, and it connects directly to our next topic, control and intelligence.
Before we move on, let's just touch on the geopolitical drivers. The U.S. is focusing on its conventional prompt strike program.
For rapid, non-nuclear strikes, that's a clear escalation strategy.
But the competitive landscape shows really diverse motives.
It does. South Korea, for example, is accelerating its program to close deterrence gaps with North Korea.
And their specific goal is conventional supremacy.
Exactly. They want to achieve it using these weapons precisely to avoid needing to house nuclear weapons. They want a fast, overwhelming, non-nuclear deterrent.
That makes perfect sense. They want the punch without the nuclear baggage.
And we also see interesting innovation from India. Their cruise missile uses a scramjet that carries no onboard oxidizer.
It scoops the air.
It scoops the air, making it significantly lighter than other designs, so it can maintain those high speeds for longer. It's a fascinating race for superior design.
That's a comprehensive look at the ultimate weapon of speed. Let's pivot now from raw velocity, which we now know is hard to control, to the ultimate weapon of intelligence.
Autonomous weapons systems. AWS.
The only thing faster than Mach 5 might be the speed of code execution.
Absolutely. And the sources make it clear that the combination of AI, robotics, and crucially readily available commercial off-the-shelf components, COTS, is fundamentally changing war.
It's changing how wars are fought, how we evaluate their outcomes.
And who ultimately holds accountability.
Let's delve into that accountability. The sources highlight that AWS is totally dependent on global and civilian assets. How does that dependency complicate the ethics of it all?
Well, if you look at the required infrastructure, AWS relies on GPS, 5G networks, commercial supply chains for sensors, processors.
Everyday tech.
Right. And if you're a wealthy military, you have significant control over that infrastructure you deploy. So your ethical obligations are often seen to extend to the entire strategic foundation.
And if you're a smaller nation or a non-state actor?
If you're a poorer military, you're probably relying on allies or commercial supply chains for those systems. Your ethical obligations might only be limited to the tactical decision-making level, when the trigger is pulled.
Not the strategic level you have no control over.
Exactly. This divergence creates a real ethical gap in how this technology is used globally.
This brings us to the core ethical question raised by experts like Kate Conroy. Is it even remotely plausible that these automated systems could be better at complying with international humanitarian law, IHL, than, fallible, emotional human soldiers?
From a purely technical standpoint, Conroy argues that yes, it is possible. AWS can process data faster, react without fatigue or bias, and achieve a level of precision that humans just can't match.
If there's a huge however there, isn't it?
A massive one. However, she stresses this is only achievable if human beings invest in capabilities that prioritize human-centered values and robust control mechanisms during the entire design and testing phase.
So what are those human-centered investments she recommends?
It's largely about upskilling. First, upskilling commanders and even organizations like the Red Cross in both IHL principles and the technical capabilities of the machines.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, developing human-centered test metrics. We need ways to measure compliance that aren't just about speed or accuracy, but ethical outcomes.
And third,
a massive investment in high-fidelity digital infrastructure to give human decision-makers real-time, comprehensive situational awareness of the civilian environment.
it sounds like the ethical burden always comes back to the humans who develop and deploy the system.
Always.
But when the public hears about AWS, they often fear machines taking over. The sources categorize the public's ethical concerns into three main axes of horror.
Right. The first axis is the machine mind. This is the public fear that a machine will decide who lives or dies, acting totally outside human control.
But the irony is,
The irony, as the sources point out, is that the horror exists not because the machine is independent, but often because it delivers exactly what its human designers intended, just with terrifying efficiency. It's human intent executed mechanically.
and the second axis, the missing human, addresses the concern that commanders are just abdicating their responsibility.
Precisely. But IHL requirements are really clear. The human commander is morally and legally responsible. The commander must understand the system's capabilities, its limitations, its parameters.
The human link is never supposed to be missing.
If it is, the system is deployed illegally. End of story.
And finally, the inadequate machine. That seems like a very real operational problem.
It is, but the source reframes it brilliantly. This is less a mystical AI failure and more a failure of human development and testing.
So unreliable systems using patchy data.
Are ultimately a consequence of inadequate human investment in development and testing.
Given this reliance on private tech and the speed of development, what are the top regulatory hurdles governments are facing right now?
The list is formidable. Number 1, dealing with low-regulated enablers.
So the big tech companies.
The crucial private tech companies, Google, SpaceX, Amazon, supplying the underlying services and data. They often operate with carve-outs, meaning existing obligations, like consumer protection laws, don't apply to their military contracts.
They supply the tools, but we can't really regulate the tool makers effectively.
Exactly. Then there's the challenge of diverse systems. Autonomy isn't a single switch, it's a whole spectrum of capabilities.
Which makes unified regulation impossible.
Right. Third, interpretable requirements. I mean, what does predictability mean in one operational environment versus another? It's subjective. And of course, the sheer rapid pace of technological change just constantly outpaces legislative cycles.
That really sets the stage for the future of warfare. But now, let's leave the future and look back at the weapon that defined the very shape of the last 70 years.
The nuclear legacy.
The scale of escalation here it's truly staggering.
It is. The first successful test, Trinity, in 1945, yielded about 25 kilotons of TNT. That was the benchmark for the initial atomic era.
But the Soviet A-bomb in 1949 quickly triggered the U.S. response, leading to the development of the hydrogen bomb.
And that's where the numbers just stop making sense.
They really do.
The first fusion bomb test, Mach, yielded 10.4 megatons. That's over 400 times the power of the original atomic bomb.
And Castle Bravo was even bigger.
Castle Bravo, tested in 1954, was 15 megatons. And that accidental yield resulted in the worst U.S. radiological disaster, contaminating islands hundreds of miles away.
That's a jump from a large explosion to an existential threat in under a decade. And this destructive power led directly to the strategic doctrine we know as massive retaliation,
which evolved into mutually assured destruction, or MAD.
Help the listener understand the terrifying logic of MAD.
The logic of MAD is simple, it's perverse, and it's designed to breed paralysis. The goal was to deny your opponent any first strike capability. It ensures that if one side launches an attack, the other side will surely retaliate with enough remaining force to guarantee the destruction of both nations.
It's a doctrine built on the shared guarantee of suicide.
And the sheer fiscal commitment to maintaining this terrifying balance is almost impossible to wrap your head around.
It is.
The total U.S. nuclear expenditure between 1940 and 1998 was estimated at $5.5 trillion in 1996 dollars.
To put that figure in context for you, that single program cost an amount equal to the entire national debt of the United States in 1998.
The cost of maintaining the button that could end the world.
And that enormous investment peaked in the tension of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962.
That was the closest the world ever came to global nuclear war. It was a flashpoint that forced sanity back into the equation.
And that near catastrophe directly led to de-escalation measures.
It did. The installation of the hotline between Washington and Moscow and the signing of the Partial Test Ban Treaty the following year, it took guaranteed annihilation to force guaranteed communication.
So we've gone from the ultimate weapon of speed and intelligence back to the ultimate weapon of existential destruction. Let's zoom all the way down now to the ultimate personal weapon.
Self-defense.
We looked at the question, what is the most effective martial art that is easy to learn and quick to pick up for the average person?
And the consensus from the sources is surprisingly unified, and it's a crucial takeaway for all. The real ultimate defense isn't fighting at all.
It's something else.
It's situational awareness, projecting confidence, effective de-escalation techniques, and above all, just general physical fitness. They are far more valuable than fighting ability in most real-world confrontations.
So being able to run is better than being able to grapple.
One source suggested that if you can run a mile in under 5 minutes, you have arguably achieved a higher level of self-defense than 90% of people who train regularly.
You can just escape.
You can escape 99% of confrontations.
But if you are forced to fight, what's the quickest path to practical street-level competence?
For quick competency, I'm talking achievable in a matter of months. Boxing is overwhelmingly recommended.
What about boxing?
It's easy to grasp the fundamentals, it translates incredibly well to real-life situations, and it's effective against about 95% of untrained people.
What's the drawback?
The major drawback. It's purely offensive and teaches zero conflict resolution skills. It's only about punching.
And for those in it for the long haul, wanting the optimal defense,
You need a system that addresses both striking and grappling, because most street fights end up on the ground or in a clinch.
So a mix.
An MMA-style training or cross-training. Think Muay Thai combined with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or boxing with wrestling or judo.
But these require a longer commitment.
Oh, yeah. These styles require at least 6 months to a year of dedicated, regular training to achieve proper, usable self-defense capability.
What's the best way to train for a beginner? Group sessions or one-on-one?
For a beginner focused on self-defense, group sessions are actually better than private lessons.
Really? Why is that?
Group classes introduce the essential complexities of fighting multiple people, maneuvering in a crowded space and reacting to unexpected movements.
Yeah.
Sparring and pressure testing, actually having someone try to punch you, are non-negotiable for effectiveness.
And the specific caution on Krav Maga that we found.
Be highly selective. While the core philosophy of Krav Maga, fast, brutal, effective, is sound, the sources caution that quality control across independent gyms is a huge issue.
Scammers.
There are many scammers focused on collecting fees rather than providing realistic training. So due diligence in choosing a gym is absolutely critical.
That's great practical advice. Finally, let's see how fiction treats this whole concept of the ultimate weapon. We looked at a list of the 50 greatest fictional weapons, excluding massive things like the Death Star.
And we see these clear categories emerge that mirror humanity's deepest desires for control. You have weapons of transformation and utility.
Like the golden gun from James Bond.
Exactly. Its genius isn't just the instant kill, but that it breaks down into a common cigarette case, a lighter, a pen, and a cufflink. It blends power with everyday stealth.
Or the dagger of time, which allows the user to freeze, slow, or even reverse time. It's not brute force, it's mastery over reality itself.
Then, of course, there are the weapons of absolute annihilation. The ultimate nullifier, a handheld device that can wipe out entire universes, timelines, dimensions.
The closest fictional analog to a nuclear weapon.
They provide supreme suicidal power.
But the weapon chosen as #1 on this list, the one that transcends technology, is the Green Lantern power ring.
And that's fascinating because it's a psychological weapon. It grants the user any energy construct they can imagine, limited only by their willpower.
So it suggests the ultimate weapon isn't a piece of technology,
but boundless creativity harnessed by absolute self-mastery.
And speaking of humanity versus technology, one fictional narrative beautifully merges the military and personal ultimate weapon dilemma. The manga Saikano, or She, the ultimate weapon.
This narrative is a perfect coda for this deep dive. The core conflict is Cheese, a shy high school student who is involuntarily transformed by the Japan self-defense forces into a highly destructive machine.
And her struggle is intensely personal.
She's losing her humanity, her fading warmth, her heartbeat, her senses, all as the weapon system takes over her body.
Her final defense is her connection to her boyfriend, Shuji.
That deep, unwavering human bond is what ultimately allows her to destroy her own weaponized form in an act of self-sacrifice. The narrative argues that her soul, her love, is the true ultimate weapon.
The power that triumphs over total technological annihilation.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? We've traced the race for the ultimate weapon from hyperspeed missiles that challenge the laws of physics through these existential regulatory dilemmas with AI.
And back through a historical nuclear doctrine, Mamedi, that cost an amount equal to the entire national debt.
And yet when we look at individual power, the best defense is ultimately rooted in consciousness, awareness, and the ability to simply run away.
What the sources reveal is this profound and fascinating contrast. Military power is obsessively measured in megatons and Mach numbers, driven by billions of dollars.
But personal power?
The power we need to survive a random encounter is measured in situational awareness and the commitment to one's own fitness.
Considering humanity's documented inadequacy in controlling the ethical behavior of autonomous systems and the failure of the human ego to prevent the nuclear arms race, the question isn't what is the ultimate weapon, but who is the ultimate controller?
Right. If fictional narratives like Saikano suggest the ultimate defense against annihilation is genuine human connection and self-sacrifice.
How much should we be investing in human-centered values, in training, in ethical oversight, versus simply more digital infrastructure and speed? Something to consider the next time you hear about a massive defense budget line item.